Now look what you've done, Rapunzel. Oh, don't worry, dear. Our secret will die with him.
A crucial part of every Disney film is the narrative's villain. They add complexity to classic fairy tales while providing the heroes and main characters something to fight for. However, Descendants does an excellent job of giving the villains just as much screen time as it does the franchise's heroes, following Mal and her friends as they work to break the generational divide that has caused Auradon and the Isle of the Lost to be separated for so long. During Descendants: The Rise of Red, Uma mentions that Ben and Mal have set sail, searching for new lands to make alliances with. If they succeed, it will open the door for new characters to enter the Descendants franchise, including characters only mentioned by name and completely new faces. In today's video, we'll discuss Disney villains who could appear in future films.
With that wand and my scepter, I will be able to bend both good and evil to my will.
Number 1. Scar. As one of Disney's favorite villains, it's surprising that the iconic lion has yet to appear or cameo in the films. The Lion King is one of Disney's staple franchises, with the film serving as a household name across generations. While it seems unlikely that a lion could have a place in Auradon, Scar isn't the only animal to reside in the massive kingdom or the Isle of the Lost. There are numerous examples of talking or magical animals in the franchise, including the original books and the films. Scar is mentioned in Mal's spellbook, where she has him listed under villains who deserve respect. His likeness also appears in Descendants 3, where a sign bearing his likeness can be seen in one of the background scenes. Mal may have crossed paths with Scar while living on the Isle, as all villains, including the wildlife, were banished there. Scar's hyena henchmen, Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed, would also reside on the Isle, as their descendants are mentioned in the novel The Isle of the Lost. Scar likely controlled a portion of territory on the Isle, as it's unlikely that many people would willingly cross paths with a bloodthirsty lion. Without animals to curb his hunger, he may have resorted to more violent means to survive, making him one of the more dangerous villains on the Isle. His life would become easier once the barrier to the Isle falls, allowing him to return to a world lush with wildlife and suitable environments. Scar also has biological children in The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. However, he names the cub Kovu, his heir. Since the franchise primarily focuses on children and the lineages of famous fairy tales, characters like Kovu, Vitani, or Nuka could likely appear in place of Scar.
Oh, I'm a little surprised to see you alive.
Number 2. Mother Gothel. One of the most notable villains in Disney is Mother Gothel, who debuted in the beloved film Tangled. The adoptive mother of Rapunzel, she's responsible for kidnapping the princess and using her unique powers to achieve eternal youth. Gothel receives so much attention from Disney fans for how she treats Rapunzel, behaving like a jailer who encourages her daughter to remain indoors and ignore the outside world, even when she only wants to watch the lanterns released on her birthday every year. She's a genuinely vain and selfish villain who cares more about her self-interest than the woman she raised. In the Descendants novels, Mother Gothel does have a prominent role. She appears in numerous stories and teaches Selfishness 101 at Dragon Hall, the Isle's local school. She also has a biological daughter named Ginny, who makes routine appearances in the novels. However, neither of them made the final cut for the film adaptations. While the Isle may be abandoned, there's still time for Ginny and her mother to appear at Auradon Prep, providing the restarted franchise with some exciting cameos.
Do you even hear yourself? Why would you ask such a ridiculous question? It was you. It was all you.
Number 3. Gaston. While Gaston doesn't appear in the Descendants films, he does have a life on the Isle of the Lost. In the novels, he's mentioned a few times, as he's the father of twins Gaston Jr. and Gaston III, and Gil. Gil is familiar to many Descendants fans, as he's the lovable and kind-hearted member of Uma's crew. He has a recurring role in the second and third films, helping his captain achieve her various goals. Gil mentions his father a few times in the films, but the novels explain how Gaston has spent his years on the Isle. He acts as the PE teacher at Dragon Hall, employed sometime after the barrier went up around the Isle. He also owns a store at the Isle called Gaston's Duels Without Rules. As a weapon supply store, Gaston sells wares like clubs, bows and arrows, and swords perfect for duels. Since Auradon also uses swords for duels, protection, and sporting events, Gaston could continue making a living through his store. While Ben likely would disapprove of Gaston selling weapons for the sake of violence, there's no denying how many people in Auradon rely on firearms to protect themselves. Chloe is the most recent example, as she desires to join Auradon Prep's Swords and Shields team. An adept sword fighter, Chloe quickly blurs the line between sportsman and combatant when necessary. It's possible that she could use Gaston's wares if she's ever faced with more enemies in the future.
Who said you weren't big or bad enough to be in her gang? back when we were kids.
Number 4. Sid. Sid may be a child when he debuts in Toy Story, but that doesn't mean his actions are any less horrific to characters like Woody and Buzz Lightyear. While it may seem impossible for sentient toys to have a place in the Descendants franchise, their existence is more than possible, as animals capable of human speech and characters like Pinocchio can also exist. With this in mind, Mal may discover a land of sentient toys during her current travels, allowing her to meet the violent and destruction-prone Sid, who may terrorize the toys for not knowing how to interact with them. Sid's violent actions could have earned him a spot in the Isle of the Lost, but as a Pixar-adjacent character, he's set apart from other Disney villains. Although he didn't use it correctly, Sid was very creative. His ability to plan and make his visions come to life could help restore their universe to how it was meant to be before Red threatened to change history with time travel. Sid is also very mechanically minded and driven. If Red ever breaks the pocket watch, she could turn to the suspicious Sid, allowing him to examine the watch rather than admit her mistakes to Maddox.
I've always wanted to put a spaceman into orbit.
Number 5. Madame Mim. A more uncommon villain in the Disney franchise would be the female witch following Merlin in The Sword and the Stone, Madame Mim. Although her original film is an older Disney classic, she's still incredibly relevant in the franchise. Trapped in the Isle alongside the other villains, Madame Mim makes a life for herself, including a large family with many granddaughters, the most notable being Mad Maddie. Although absent from the films, Madame Mim appears in the novels, initially finding the tunnel that led from the Isle into Auradon. She uses the path to enter the kingdom, attacking Camelot Heights in dragon form. Her crimes are nearly blamed on Maleficent until Mal and the others find Mim, allowing Merlin to send her back to the Isle for good. Madame Mim holds a grudge about Merlin and Camelot, and she could exhibit those feelings in full force now that she's free from the Isle. Her attack on Camelot Heights could still occur in the films, but would only impact Red and Chloe rather than Mal. Madame Mim debuting now would also make perfect sense, as Merlin made his first film appearance in Descendants 4.
I'm the magnificent, marvelous Madame Mim. You know what?
Number 6. Yzma. An outspoken and determined villain, Yzma helps make The Emperor's New Groove a delightful story. She accidentally transforms Kuzco into a llama to usurp his throne, leading to her life on the Isle. Yzma doesn't have a significant role in the franchise, but she does live in Auradon, where her 2 children appear. Her daughter Isla makes a brief appearance in the novels, while her son Zevron is an antagonist in Descendants' Wicked World. Zevron inherits his mother's skill in making potions and spends the second season of the animated series, causing mayhem. If Isla or Zevron ever debuted in the live-action films, their mother could influence them.
But Your Highness, I was only dealing with meaningless peasant matters.
Wow.
If the Descendants franchise has taught its audience anything, appreciating and understanding the villains is as important as embracing the heroes. Although many can be redeemed, a few antagonists across Auradon may not be willing to abandon their evil ways, bringing themselves and their descendants into the spotlight to make themselves known across Auradon. With the Queen of Hearts saved from herself, there's an open vacancy for the franchise's overarching villain, and anyone could step up to fill the role.
Pack your bags. Am I hallucinating, or did my mom just grow a heart?
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications to stay updated on our uploads.
So, Mother, earlier I was saying tomorrow is a pretty big day and you didn't really respond, so I'm just gonna tell you it's my birthday!